Bye week is over. It's Friday forecast time. It's game week again. Indiana Hoosiers coming to town. Sean, I guess the big news we got to start with is the news that came out Monday about Maurice Washington. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I think it's been kind of a battle for Scott Frost. Maurice Washington came in as a high-risk, high-reward guy from the get-go, and you saw some of the things he could do, but I think some of the things off the field and some of the issues he's had, whether it was the legal case, whether it was the marijuana thing this offseason, whether it was showing up to a team meeting late, whether it was academic related, a number of things I think led to where we're at now this week, and that's Maurice Washington's future is unknown for Nebraska going forward.
Yeah, Scott Frost says he tries to help the guys as much as possible, but you get it to a breaking point, almost a throw your hands in the air moment, and I think we've reached that with Maurice Washington. So where do the Huskers go moving forward at running back?
Well, I think Dedrick Mills now. I think the picture is a lot clearer now that number 26, Dedrick Mills, has to be your guy. Then, your quarterback position is going to probably take on more onus. I just can't imagine a heavy workload for Wyatt Mazur. I think he's going to be more of a spot guy. I think you basically have to tell Dedrick Mills, all right, man, we need you for at least 20 carries a game for the final 5 games. So you better expect to have about 100 or more carries over these final 5 games if we're going to do what we need to do on offense, because you really are it. You're going to get Ramir Johnson for up to 2 games max. How are they going to use him? That's hard to say. They've been really, really hard to figure out with those freshmen and how they utilize them. So I would expect Mills to be a big, big part, obviously, going forward.
Quarterback, always a question, and obviously we're coming into this week again with more questions at quarterback. How is this team different now that we have some game film of Noah Vedral as opposed to Adrian Martinez? I think when you look down to it, it doesn't really matter who's quarterback if you can't protect him, right?
Right, and you look at the offensive line for Nebraska, it's just been inconsistent, especially on the right side. They just allowed too much pressure in to the quarterback, and they've got to get that shored up. Adrian Martinez will have essentially 3 weeks between contact. So will he be ready to go Saturday? That remains to be seen, as we know how Scott Frost plays that close to the vest. Yep. And Noah Vedral took a little bit of a shot at Minnesota. So both those guys, they need to get him ready. Maybe Luke McCaffrey, this could be one of his games. Right. So both teams, Indiana's got questions at quarterback too, as their guy is going to be a game-time decision.
Yeah, Michael Penix Jr. and Peyton Ramsey. Ramsey's the backup, though he started in the past, but Penix is a guy who took a shot last week. Indiana's a team that's sneaky good. They're 5-2, and they've won back-to-back games, granted against Rutgers and at Maryland. What kind of team is this Hoosier team?
They've parred the course, essentially. I mean, they've lost to 2 teams in Michigan State and Ohio State that they should have lost to, but they've had a very, very favorable non-conference schedule. I think UConn might have been their toughest game on there on paper when you look at it.
Ball State, Eastern Illinois, and UConn was their non-con.
I mean, so they took kind of the Bill Snyder 90s approach at K-State. Let's get 3 nice ones, get momentum going. I mean, they got a good schedule, and they've taken advantage of it, kind of like Minnesota to an extent. So they're 5-2, but I still don't know if people really know how good they are. But you look at that schedule, and they're like, hey, we could maybe be 8-4, and they're favored here in Lincoln Saturday. So there's a lot for Indiana going into this game.
Kind of an interesting week, kind of an interesting feel. Can you put a finger on what we're feeling here? It just seemed like a different feel on Monday.
Yeah, the mantra, no fear of failure, you almost get the sense, I just feel like there's a fear of failure right now, just because you don't know what path this season's going to head down. And everybody had an idea what they thought this season was going to be. It has not been that way. And now I think Monday came around for this week, and you see Nebraska's listed as an underdog to Indiana. I think that was kind of like a gut punch. I think most people were like, all right, going into game week, Nebraska will be like a 7 to 9 point favorite against Indiana. Sets up nice at home to get the mojo back. No. The first time Indiana's been to Lincoln, by the way, since Lee Corsos was the head coach in 1977, and they're favored. Our good friend Tom Dienhart from Purdue Rivals said, things I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. Indiana favored over Nebraska at Memorial Stadium.
And yet that's the case. It's going to happen at 2:30. It's a Big Ten Network game here at Memorial Stadium, Nebraska and Indiana on Saturday.